I want to make sure to let you know this is the Nourishing Liberty podcast. It's all about our food systems and how we fit into them. And I am Liz Reitzig, the podcast producer and author over on Substack, Raw Milk Mama. So today, I wanted to tackle something that I actually visited a little over a year ago, after a ton of research, and it's especially relevant today. So I'm revisiting that. And I know there's a lot going on in the world these days. There's so much instability with our food systems. And that's what we're going to talk about. That's what I focus on. That's what I research. And for all those listening live and in the follow-up, whenever you look at this, time and date stamp, so to speak, it's end of March 2026. The context, of course, is that we are in the midst of another war, basically. What does that mean for our food systems? How does it impact us as Americans? The focus I am focusing on, for the purposes of this conversation, I am focusing on the American food systems. That is what I know best. That's what I want to focus on. So here we are in that context. Hey, Rick and Nick and Danny, thanks so much for joining this. So yeah, as I'm talking, and I'm actually going to read an article that I published over a year ago. But as I'm reading, as I'm talking, please feel free to use the comment section to write questions or make your own comments. Good to see you, Nick. I love reading your stuff too. Although I don't comment, I will start to do that more. So anyway, here we go. I do want to address this, and I want to say just really clearly, I try not to be hyperbolic. I try really hard not to get panicky and not to lead with that at all. So this piece, I do discuss some things that seem that way. I'm not a doomer. I'm an apocalyptimist. So with that being said, this piece is called The Great American Famine and the Collapse of Our Food Security. And I'm writing it to get people thinking about this, not because I think this is inevitable. All right. And it is a complex topic. It's heavy, but it's necessary. And the context of last year when I published it, it was right during the bird flu culling of millions of chickens. And that felt like a trigger also, but now we have the war. So here we go. The Great American Famine. If only one man dies of hunger, that is a tragedy. If millions die, that's only statistics. Joseph Stalin. If I ask you to imagine 45 million people, you probably can't. And what does it even look like? That's roughly twice the population of Australia, or the whole population of Spain or Argentina, or roughly 14% of the population of the United States. 45 million people of average size standing shoulder to shoulder would take up approximately 3.23 square miles. It's almost too enormous for comprehension. Yet, as recently as 1958 to 1962, just over 60 years ago, widespread famine ravished China. And according to historian Frank Decatur, 45 million, approximately 7% of the population at the time, 45 million Chinese people died unnecessarily as a direct result of the Great Chinese Famine. But how? How did it get this bad? Why didn't people stop this from happening? And how can we use the lessons from the Great Chinese Famine to prevent this from happening to the American population, if it's not too late already? What is famine? You might think of famine as an isolated geographic area that has food production low enough to cause great human suffering, malnutrition, and probably some level of starvation. Sure, that is one facet of it, but that's not all. Wiki has this to add. According to the United Nations World Food Program, Famine is declared when malnutrition is widespread and when people have started dying of starvation through lack of access to sufficient nutritious food. With this broader umbrella of famine, one could easily and rightly argue that the United States of America is already experiencing famine. Or one could say we are on the brink of massive famine, possibly already too far down the slippery slope to right ourselves before catastrophic damage. Does American cheese slapped between two pieces of pasty Wonder Bread and loaded into plastic baggies nourish the hungry? If EBT, or food stamps, recipients have access to all the soda pop and processed, sugar-laden, chemical-infused snacks they can ingest, does that count as access to sufficient nutritious food? Can people starve to death via lack of nutrition while their bellies are full of artificial cheese-flavored puffs and fast food? Farmer and advocate Ron Finley certainly has some thoughts on urban access to sufficient nutritious food. As he explains, the drive-thrus are killing more people than the drive-bys. How many cans and boxes of food at the local food pantry does it take to make a healthy dinner, if the recipients even know how to cook and have all the equipment needed, including an actual kitchen? Food access versus food security. In America, food access means you have access to enough soda pop, chemical-laden chips, white bread, and processed cheese to fill your belly. Americans have collectively decided to call people who can't afford enough food insecure, and we attempt to solve this lack via food stamps. For those unaware or who have never needed this service, it's a certain amount of money per month allocated for food to each member of a household that falls below the poverty line. But real food security is about knowing how and when and where to grow and harvest food that nourishes you, and having the ability and resources to source your own nutrition. For example, access to grass-fed raw milk from hyperlocal, within easy walking or biking distance, cows, fresh fruits and vegetables grown and harvested within bicycle riding distance of where they are consumed, or the ability to grow and harvest our own meat, whether that's hunting, fishing, or raising livestock where we live. This is food security. And most Americans don't actually have food security. Yes, I know there are proud individual homesteaders nodding their heads and feeling great that they've got to jump on the food security issue, and rightly so. But preserving that food security might include protecting yourself against hungry neighbors. How many hungry children begging for food are you willing to turn away to protect your family? Are you prepared and able to defend your homestead against roving bands of gangs ready to take what they need to feed themselves? Creating food security anywhere helps to create food security everywhere. Homesteaders are important and do good work, but that's not all we need. We must listen to the farmers, producers, and advocates who are sounding the alarm and telling us clearly where we need to pay attention. One big irony of modern America is that farmers and growers actually producing food for local communities are criminalized for doing so, such as Ron Finley, who I mentioned earlier, and Wisconsin farmer Vernon Hirschberger. This is in part because federal and state governments have a myopic focus on food safety and pay little mind to true food security. Mass starvation is just around the corner. I strongly dislike hyperbole, and yet I find myself recognizing the truth that if we Americans do not change our food system dramatically, we are headed in the same direction or worse as China during the Great Leap Forward, because we are following the exact same patterns that led to the Great Chinese Famine. Is it too late to reverse course? This isn't and can't be about something short term. Food takes time to grow. Ecosystems don't restore themselves with the snap of a finger. Complex ideologies that leave many Americans in food deserts don't shift overnight. Reversing course must include a conscious mindset shift towards relearning to grow or harvest nutrition locally from the land we share. We run around worried about ourselves, the immediacy of food for the next few days, reading headlines of mass casualties in war, the accompanying disease and famine, and we carry on, not absorbing the incredible loss that it symbolizes, running on the hamster wheel of isolating our little corner, our little homestead, so it doesn't happen here. But as is always the case, this is both complicated and part of a complex system, a system from which most Americans are divorced. What do I base these wild and hyperbolic seeming statements on? Let's explore the parallels. If, by the end of this article, you do not share my concerns, please tell me how you've reached your conclusion. I'd like to have hope that we are already on a path of course correction, that my conclusions are far-fetched and unlikely. I'd like to believe in something better than what I see as the inevitable outcome of destructive agriculture policies year after year and shocking ignorance on the part of most Americans. But if you do agree that our trajectory is on a destructive path, it's not too late to course correct. Famine isn't here yet, at least for most of us, and our individual power to make changes in our households and communities is inspiring. But we must begin. Why are we headed towards catastrophic famine if we don't course correct urgently? Centralized control. Let's look at China right before the Great Chinese Famine struck. China had a planned economic structure where the acquisition and distribution of food were directly controlled by the central government. In China, all private property was abolished. Houses, animals, land, and production tools became collective property. The individual was nothing more than a cog in a big machine. In the people's communes, peasants had no right to free speech. Their skills weren't taken into consideration anymore. Everything was decided by the authorities who knew nothing about the subject. And these quotes are footnoted in the article, which I will link also in the video. The entire system was set up to produce food in one area and ship it to another area. But when the mechanism for shipping became scarce or broken down, it created waste on one side and starvation on the other. In some cases, there wasn't enough fuel to transport the food to the people. What about America? One might argue that in 2025 America, and now 2026, we can't possibly face what China faced because our federal government doesn't have as much control over the people or the production as the Chinese communes had leading up to the famine. But here in America, we have centralized control of food production and processing through commercial government cooperatives. The federal government works with the industries to set pricing, control outputs, and even subsidize farms for not growing. Some Americans will roll their eyes, bury their heads in the sand, and go about their daily lives expecting that their vast hoarded monetary resources will insulate them from the consequences of famine. But when transportation breaks down or a crisis happens in a city, no amount of money will get the food to the people. Efficiency and new theories. In the Great Leap Forward, efficiency was a goal in production. The objective was to create large amounts of food while decreasing the human labor needed to produce it. Sound familiar? But this wasn't the only thing happening. The implementation of farming theories by Trofim Lysenko, a Soviet agronomist, led to further destruction. Just as Marxism hoped to reinvent society, Lysenko wanted to revolutionize farming by discarding existing knowledge in favor of new techniques. America's factory farming system and commodity grain production are touted as being productive. High yields are prized over soil quality, human health, or ecosystem diversity. And today in America, as for the past 50 years, commodity and conventional chemical agriculture are embracing new, untested theories to improve production, such as AI, new chemicals, and of course, constantly evolving GMOs, to name a few of the innovations. Many American farmers are foregoing the tried and true methods of production that honor our ecosystems. These old systems give us life and restore our biospheres. While there are a few producers working hard to preserve older ideas for future generations, most American farming is in lockstep with modern mechanized ideologies of production. But it didn't stop there in China or America. Industrialization and energy. Limited growing and centralized food production weren't the only causes of the vast famine that led to the massive starvation. In a feverish attempt to exploit workers for the benefit of the Great Leap Forward, Mao emphasized steel production on productive farmland by requiring the doubling of steel production. Both workers and land went towards the production of poor quality steel. Today in America, we see that same frantic ratcheting up of renewable energy, especially solar and wind. It's decimating farmland across the country and sucking the life out of once hopeful farmers. Farmers are sounding the warnings with alarm bells ringing loudly. They're begging for America's attention on this, and Americans are ignoring or laughing at them. Far from providing reliable materials for the people of China, the steel production was a catastrophic failure on every level. In America, farmland usurped by solar or wind companies is often under contract for 20 to 30 plus years and unable to go back into production due to the destruction of the ecosystem, even if necessity arises. Natural disasters. The Great Chinese Famine didn't just happen. Complex policies and human behaviors led to weaker systems. So when natural disasters occurred, as they do, there was little to no resilience. Extreme droughts and floods hit different regions of China, lowering yields on an already stressed system. This was the perfect storm for further dysfunction that led to widespread starvation and what we know of today as the Great Chinese Famine. America briefly saw this kind of rigidity in our systems with the Dust Bowl and Great Depression of the 30s. We see it today with worsening wildfires in California every year, droughts and floods across the American Midwest, and the massive supply chain threat induced by the recent pandemic. It happens with an unexpected cold snap, animal disease outbreak, and accompanying culling of herds and flocks like we were witnessing a year ago. We can guarantee natural disasters will continue. The questions we need to ask ourselves today are, will we be better prepared this time? And who will be most affected by food and nutrition shortages? America isn't China. Where we differ. Of course, 2026 America isn't 1950s Maoist China. There are massive differences. But how good are those political or social differences if the land and production parallels are the same? How much does it matter if we are a democracy where people voluntarily pack themselves into food insecure cities, while China was a communist nation and people were forced or coerced into communes? How much do these political differences truly matter in a discussion on food security if the end result is a horribly dysfunctional, centralized food system sitting on the brink of utter destruction? Perhaps one of the greatest benefits of today is that we have this lesson from history. We can look at this painful example and decide not to make the same mistakes. We don't need to lead ourselves to slaughter via a food system that can't feed the city populations when a natural disaster, pandemic, or war hits. We can decide right now to focus on domestic food security. We also differ in the modern emphasis on globalization, some will argue. This is a double-edged sword. Yes, we can get food imports. If America faces a catastrophic weather-related or supply chain crisis, other countries could send resources. But the flip side of globalization has serious concerns. All our commodity crops must be centrally regulated and prepared for export, again, destabilizing our ability to create a vibrant and resilient local food system. Long distance transportation of food invites many risk factors where local production and processing don't. And I'm going to add to this, this is not in the original article, but now we are seeing, because of the global system, we see the impact that's having on fertilizers and some of our farms' ability to actually even put in a spring crop. This is literally catastrophic. Are all these dangerous policies intentional? Are they designed for depopulation? For the most part, I think not. Not because I don't believe it's possible. I know that there is a horrible darkness in some people with a twisted need to control. I also know that some people actively want to lower the world's population and will stop at nothing to do so. But widespread famine, even via carefully cultivated policies for several generations, is not and cannot be the only possible outcome for the depopulation freaks. Our individual autonomy is our greatest asset. There are too many variables, including individual human choices and behavior, that can quickly intervene to thwart even a well-thought-out agenda. And yes, I acknowledge I could be wrong in this assessment. Those who are hell-bent on destruction could have instigated a propaganda-driven policy campaign so strong and so thorough that it's almost impossible to spot it and prevent it. But again, I don't think that's what's happening here. I think the current plight of Americans is based on an apathy and lack of willingness to see the world as it is and to do the hard work of mending our broken ecosystems. There's a simple antidote if Americans will consider it. Whether the motivation behind such policies is malicious or incalculably greedy, or it's an ideology led by ignorance and apathy, the antidote is the same regardless. It's beautifully simple, although not easy. It is to turn our focus to preparation, not panic. My illustration of the Chinese famine is not to induce fear and panic. Quite the opposite. It's to encourage preparation so that we may never face something like they faced. Listen to the farmers who are telling you what's happening. Produce something, anything of your own. Learn about your ecosystem, the plants, animals, and fungi of your region, and how to harvest what you can. Understand that communities need high-calorie foods like eggs and dairy. Community gardens are fantastic, but they will not serve the high-calorie needs and nutrition of a medium community. Bring food-producing animals back into our yards, neighborhoods, and communities. Embrace small farms everywhere, as well as animal-based foods. This is an ideological shift. We must bring food security back to our communities where we live, work, and play through changing minds, changing policies, and yes, changing local and state laws. I believe Americans want this. We want to reconnect to our land, to the animals that are companions in production, and to the ecosystem that nourishes us. We're teetering on the edge of a dangerous cliff, but we can right ourselves and get away from that ledge before we fall. Don't look to your favorite politician to make this right. We're the ones who have to do the work. Eat for health, know your neighbor, and grow some food. So that was from February of 2025. Of course, now it's even more relevant with the war going on. And what can we do? What are the most important steps to take right now? And as I say in the mantra I have, which is eat for health, that's important, right? If you're focusing on getting nutrient-dense foods for yourself, you're going to be better prepared no matter what. Know your neighbors and grow some food. And Nick, yes, we've got to learn more about how to grow our own food or harvest what's available around us, and seeds. I don't know anything about a seed ban. I'm not sure if that's true, or maybe just panic-inducing headlines for the people who use clickbait. I don't think that's true. But yes, high quality seeds, there's several good places. High Mowing Seeds, great company, very small. Not very small, not micro, but a small business. They're incredible, just incredible. The quality of their seeds are great. Johnny's, of course, is great. Most of your local hardware stores will have some seeds, although those might be treated. But if you look for the organic ones, you can get some really good ones. Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. I know there's lots more, but those are right off the top of my head. Yeah, I know that there's more. You can't import seeds from Europe to the US because they have seeds that are more free from GMOs. So, Nick, on an individual or household or community level, you're not really gonna have too many GMOs. The major GMO crops in America are corn, cotton, soy, canola, and sugar beets. And the corn is the kind of corn they grow for corn syrup, not the kind of corn you eat at a barbecue, right? So most people growing on the household or community level are not going to be getting GMO seeds anyway. If you're thinking about heirloom versus hybridized, you might be thinking about heirloom seeds. And those are ones that are just farmers naturally select this strawberry because it's bigger and sweeter. And so they just keep breeding bigger and sweeter strawberries. That's hybridization. It's not the same process as GMOs. So I'm not sure what you mean about we can't import seeds. I know there are restrictions on agricultural restrictions, but there are plenty of seeds we have here that we have access to in the US that are awesome. So yes, get some seeds, have like a little corner of your house where you keep seeds. And if we all do that, we're going to be more resilient. Fact of the matter, we'll be more resilient. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to emphasize too much what's going on with the war. I think we all know it's causing insecurity. We're literally facing the collapse. It might be in slow motion, but it's happening. So seeds are really important, but I also want to add the importance of dairy, of course. My publication is called Raw Milk Mama because I believe that locally produced, clean, safe raw milk, especially on the community level, it's one of the most important things we can have access to. It doesn't mean if you're afraid of raw milk, it doesn't mean you have to drink it raw. But if you get it from a local farm, you have that in your community. You have access to calories. Like we can't eat grass, but the cows can. And then the cows turn that grass that we can't eat into food that we can eat. And the natural preservation of milk is, of course, cheese. So what an amazing food. And yet we have this ideology, Americans do, that we can't have cows in our neighborhoods. Why? Like it would take some adjustment, but why can't we? And chickens everywhere. Why not? Like some of this is just a mental shift to understand that we can and we should have food all around us. That's something that's been a part of humans for all of human history. And it's so strange right now that we've taken our food and said, food happens over there and we live over here. It's ridiculous. It's something that it needs to shift if we want to have food security again. That being said, I mean, I know that it's like a big mental shift, and many of our friends and neighbors are not on board yet. But if we keep talking about it, the importance of food security and what would it be like to know that you have dairy, eggs, meat, vegetables, all like within a couple of blocks walking distance being produced there. It's not like you just walk to the corner store, because what happens when the corner store doesn't have it anymore? So this is really about how do we shift that ideology so that we can build that food security locally. So again, thanks to those who tuned in. I do want to make sure, oh, hey, Farmer Sam. Oh, totally. Sam says there's plenty of lawns that could be used for food production. People have these massive mowed lawns, but how much of that acreage are they actually using? Sam, so true. I mean, that's like where that ideological shift, where it can start. Do we need acres and acres of grass to mow? Right, I know, it drives me nuts too, Sam. It's that's low-hanging fruit of where we can shift that ideology, right? If we start, like, I mean, these conversations need to happen. I have them all the time. I'm like the biggest ecosystem geek of anybody I know, but having these conversations like, "Oh, do you really need all that grass, or could you plant some fruit trees?" Right? And like, put some sheep on the grass, put a cow on the grass, because yeah, we have all of this space and we're just not using it in a way that produces food for us locally. And I'm going to use the word efficiently, because massive monocropped farms and feedlots are not efficient when it really boils down to what's happening in our ecosystems and what's happening to the animals on that, the whole 9 yards, right? But something that Americans can start thinking about more. How do we shift this? How do we create food security where we are? What does that look like in reality? And maybe, maybe that includes herbs for medicine. Like, that's a good place to start. It's an easy place to start. Can you grow culinary herbs? Can you grow mint? Mint is such a great culinary herb and medicinal herb. Maybe you start there. But also, what's growing where you are already? These are good questions to ask, to have a starting point, to build a foundation. And I know, I remain hopeful. I know that I am the word I used earlier, apocalyptimist. I am. I can't help it. I keep going back to, I think that as things get worse, I keep hoping that people are going to get better and come together and work together on creating this food security. That's essential. It's really essential. I don't want to see 14% of our population be victims to famine. I don't want to see that. So, hey, thanks to everybody for tuning in. And for those who catch this later, I did want to bring that article back into the forefront. And for those, I know there's many in my audience who prefer the audio and video content over the written content. So there's the audio version of that article for you. Please put something in the comments. Do you come to a different conclusion than I do? Because if you do, I want to hear it. I would love to not go to bed worrying about this at night. So what do you think? Where do you think we're headed, especially now with this war? When I wrote that article, I mean, war was always a possibility, but it wasn't on our doorstep. Today, it's on our doorstep. We're there. We're seeing the supply chain issues. We're watching the farmers say, like, they can't plant their spring crops. They don't have the fertilizer. This is going to have ripple effects everywhere. So what happens next? What do you think happens next? I think we're going to see massive rise in food prices. And I'm really sad to say it, but a huge increase in food insecurity. What do you think is going to happen? And also, a quick reminder, you are listening to the Nourishing Liberty podcast. It's Raw Milk Mama on Substack. So please come follow on Substack, subscribe, upgrade if you can. I love it when you support the blog, because that also helps me do the advocacy work that I do. So every time I get a paid subscriber, that goes to literally fill the gas tank, to go to meetings, to change policies. So you're part of it. You're part of that whole thing. All right. Thanks so much for listening, and come find me over there. Leave a comment. Be part of the conversation. Oh, one more comment. Yes, Danny, we will see more lab-made foods like meat and milk products. Oh boy, that's a whole other can of worms, isn't it, lady? Like, I know that's yes, we will. And we're going to have to actively say no to those. I think, in the big picture trend of things, we are saying no to those. That's the big picture. I know that it looks like, I know they're doing terrible things, but in the big picture, I think we are saying no to those. But then again, it's like, once people get really hungry, yes, of course, they're going to eat more lab-made foods. That's just part of it. So, yeah, I think you're right. Oh, well, you've been diving into that deep end of the pool. Okay. Well, maybe we'll have a conversation about that. And all right, folks, always choose real food. Go for the raw milk and the fresh eggs and the home baked breads from whole grains, locally grown, of course. And um, what else? Veggies, local veggies, and get a Sam. I think you sell uh, sheep boxes, right? Like meat. I think you sell the meat. So find a farmer like Sam. Sam's in Maine, for all of you folks in Maine, and get a local meat box and get their veggies. And I saw my dairy farmer on here too. So big shout out to Priggle Family Creamery in Maryland. They're so freaking awesome. And Bobby was listening earlier. I don't know if he's still listening, but big shout out to them for doing such an amazing job with milk and cheeses and great food. So find your local farmers, support them. It actually means the world to them. Like, I don't think you realize, like, the $100 grocery that you spend at whatever big grocery chain, it means nothing to a big grocery chain. But when you take that same $100 and spend it at the farmer's market or at a local farm, it is life-changing. It is farm changing. It is relational building. It changes people's lives when you spend that locally. And that money can have much greater impact rippling within a local economy. So there you go. There's so many reasons to spend your money locally, local farms, markets, buying clubs, co-ops, whatever it is, as much as you can. I know we live in 2026. I know we're in the economy we're in, but hey, if you can, you can. And if not, keep talking about it. All right. So that's a wrap for today. And I'll see you all next time. This is Nourishing Liberty. Eat for health, know your neighbor, and grow some food. Thanks so much for joining.